going on, everybody? This is Nathaniel Provincia with my very good friend Dr. Worster. What's going on, man?
Hey, great to see you,
Man,
Nathaniel. You're
hey,
looking sharp. You are looking
I,
sharp, my friend.
thanks, man. I went to the thrift store and I got this
Oh,
shirt for like $5. It's a little
that's
Ralph
very
Lauren polo, and I got this tie over here. I wanted to class it up a little bit. I see that you did not get the memo.
did not, but that is very Macklemore of you.
I tell you what, man. Summer's been good, man. We've put out a couple of episodes since the official last day of the 2024-25 school year. We're getting into the 25-26 school year.
26, crazy
Oh
man.
my goodness gracious, man. Um, I'm going to ask you this question that I used
Yeah,
to hate asking my teachers
fantastic.
when I was a principal.
Okay.
Dr. Worster, how was your summer?
My summer was very busy, Mr. Profincio. In my day job, we have a lot of stuff going on. We have a
Mm.
lot of professional learning sessions with educators and leaders that we do during the summer, and we have some big conferences to prepare for. So my summer is kind of my busy season.
Mm.
Great. I've really enjoyed it, but it's been very busy. What about yours, my friend?
Very awesome summer. Today's my son's birthday, so that's
Happy
always a big deal.
birthday.
Turned 16, man. Golly,
Oh,
do
it's a
you
big
remember when
one.
you were 16? Gee whiz, man. I was like smoking cigarettes behind the bowling alley, you know?
I was not doing that.
That's that New Hampshire, upbringing, you know what I
We didn't
mean?
we didn't do it up there. We lived free and died, but smoking wasn't one of those things. Not
Live free. Smoking was not how we did that.
no.
But yeah, man, he turned 16. My wife just became a citizen of
Hey,
this great
congratulations.
country. Yeah, yeah. So that was a big deal. We did some traveling. I did some conferences. Went to Universal Studios with the family. Spent a little time in Brazil. It was awesome, man. It was a really good summer. But the reason why I didn't like asking that question sometimes with my teachers is because some teachers didn't always have the best summer, you
True.
know. And I would ask that as kind of like a ubiquitous, like, staff opening. Hey, what did you
Yep.
do in the summer? And some people would be like, yeah, I flew to Mars, and I hiked the Great Wall of China, and then some people would be like, I had to work at Walmart, I had to
Yes.
drive Uber.
Right.
And did you ever have like any like first day kind of like things as a principal that you would do that was ubiquitous? And now looking back, you were like, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
I'm sure we did that kind of thing, asking people how was the break, what they do.
Mhm.
We always talked about data, which I probably would do that again. So that wasn't an answer to your question, but that was always a part of what we did was a look back in the summer and a look forward with our data. So not super exciting, but
Yeah,
what about,
it's just like, oh, yay, data, I mean,
hey,
and listen, data has its place, right? Especially if we're celebrating and stuff. But there's always we're hard on ourselves. I think teachers are like the hardest and administrator. I know I was very critical of myself. Like we could have a
yes.
99% pass rate and I'd be like, God, why didn't we get that
Who's that
1%?
1%?
Who is that 1% kid, And even if it was a margin of error kind of thing. But yeah, man, I hear you. First day of school is always important. I have the dad ubiquitous uh, picture of my daughter and my son holding up a sign.
Gotta have it. Oh yeah.
Gotta
First
have
day.
that. I've had that for all of their years. I even like adjust my travel schedules just so that I can be there with them. That's a big day. Do you remember your any first days of school as a kid for you?
None ring a bell.
Really?
Always no. I got one as an adult or as a principal for sure. But as a kid, I don't know. They're always kind of nerve-wracking. I remember the first day of middle school, first day of high school. Um, but I don't know that I have any great stories. Do you have anything?
Not so much as a kid. I remember my very first day of kindergarten, not my first day, but like the enrollment day. Like I have a vivid memory of when my mom enrolled me in my kindergarten class. This was years ago, right? I just remember it was the biggest room I'd ever seen in my life, which was probably like a small little closet, in real
Yes.
life, but it was a huge room. And the teacher, gosh, I think her name was Miss, gosh, Carol, I think. I think her name was Miss Carol, Mrs. Carroll. And she had stations all around the room. And in kindergarten, we would do a lot of stations.
Sure.
And I remember I gravitated to this, oh my gosh, talk about crazy memories. This red coffee can full of zoo animals, like little plastic zoo animals. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I never had those, right? And so I was playing zoo, you know what I mean, with these zoo animals. And I was like, all right, this is a cool place for me. That's it. That's what I remember. Um, and then as a principal, like first day of school was big for us, man. We wanted to try to make a really good first impression. We wanted to make sure like everything was just tip top. All, we knew where everything was. The building would look amazing. I wanted to see that shine on those floors, so that reflection from the light. So our custodians played a really big deal with everything. I wanted everything to be manicured. I just wanted everything to be perfect. And even if no one noticed it, I noticed it. I felt good about that. So as a principal, what were your expectations first day of school? Just get them in, get them fed, get them home, or like did you have like a kind of like a customer service kind of like mindset? What was it like for you, my friend?
Yes, surviving. That's it. It's just everybody surviving. It's interesting when you're talking about your kindergarten first day of school. And I was thinking back, like I said, I was nervous as a kid, but as a kid, you think all of the adults have it all together. Like you
Mm,
don't realize the adults and the leadership is just as nervous or might
yeah.
be just as nervous trying to figure out that day. I think of our new educators for the first time in their buildings, trying to figure out how does this all work. So as a kid, you think it's one-sided when actually I think everyone is nervous in the first day.
Yeah. It's like a duck. There's that metaphor of a duck. You ever see a duck on a lake or water? The legs are just going
Yep.
crazy, but like their head is just very, very
Yes.
perfect. And I know how much people are working in the summer to have that good impression. They've got the bulletin boards looking spectacular. They've got everything set up, and they're welcoming it and everything. And it's a big deal, man. Every year is like its own little universe.
Oh, for sure.
Even though this is like a 30-year game, that we have with this. Every year is unique, man. Every year is a fresh restart. And I hope that, my wish for teachers, if they're listening, is just, it doesn't have to be perfect. The bulletin board doesn't have to be perfect. Everything doesn't have to be all there. But I know it sounds cliche. Just be willing to learn from your kids, man. Start that relationship, and not in a cliche way, but get to know your kids before they know the bulletin boards. It's okay.
Starts on day one.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
you've got a good summer story. I think for me as a principal, my most memorable one, it wasn't my first year as a principal. It was my first year opening up a brand new school.
Mm,
So that was
that's
already
huge.
nerve-wracking. We were the only K-8 school in our county. And so it's a question of will this all come together and work? Because until then, it's all just imagineering and planning, and you don't know if it's going to work. And to
Oh
add to
my
the stress
gosh.
of the first day of a new building, we had news crews out in the morning. So when I got there, first thing, I had to be interviewed for the news and do publicity. And it was kind of the thing like you're talking about. Like I was able to be out there, join like the news crew, join
Mhm.
our families to let them in on the first day. And I know there were a lot of people also, even on that day behind the scenes, running around like crazy. I appreciated you mentioning the custodians. It's just
Mm.
everybody, teachers, office staff, food services, transportation, custodians, all of them are out doing everything behind the scenes to make sure that that first day goes as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, man. I hate news crews. Anytime I see a news crew, it's like PTSD. We couple stories with that one. And I've shared this. I might have shared this a couple times ago, but when my kids were little, I think they were just starting like preschool, like 4-year-old preschool. We had to buy school supplies,
Hmm.
and I just remember how stupid that was. I was like, why am I buying school supplies for my Head Start kids? You get this ubiquitous school supply list, and we're at a Target or something, and I'm putting all this stuff in the school supply, in the shopping cart, and my son's helping me, and I get the Rose Art crayons, and he's like, "No, Dad, it doesn't say Rose Art, it says Crayola." I'm like, "Oh God, I
Come on, wrong
almost made
brand.
a come on, man. Rose Art's for the hoi polloi, right? We got to get
Yes.
the Crayola." And flash drive. I'm like, why? Why do I need a flash drive? A kid's 4 years old. Anyway, so I'm putting all these supplies in the shopping cart. I'm in line and I'm just kind of like complaining about, all the things. And this lady that's behind me also has a shopping cart full of school supplies. And she hears me complaining, and I look at her, and we're kind of like complaining together, like we're having like this human parent bonding moment. And I said, out of curiosity, I said, "Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that we have to buy all these school supplies for our kids, right?" She says, "Yeah, I just moved to the area, and I got my school supply, and it's like I'm paying $300 for all these school supplies." Yeah, I know it's crazy.
Well,
That's insane. What school do you go to? And the schools that she said was Minnieville, which was the school that I was the principal of.
Yikes.
And then she said, made a comment, something like, yeah, and I hear the principal's a jerk, or something like that. So my kids are looking at me like, Dad, what are you gonna do? And I was like, and I said, ma'am, I'm Mr. P. I'm actually the principal. I'm sorry, but that was a very interesting and honest and vulnerable encounter, because I realized that a lot of schools do these practices that they've been doing for decades. And like school supply, I think school supply lists are stupid. I think they're dumb. I think they're arbitrary. Um, and what we're already doing with asking parents to buy all these things that we should be providing for our schools. I mean, we should be providing everything that kids need. Because you know this, man. Like I would have kids with a Gucci bag, a Louis Vuitton bag full of school
Yep.
supplies, and then I'd have kids
Yep.
come in with a brown paper sack with all
Yep.
their siblings broken Rose Art crayons, right? So we start off these our school year with all this inequity stuff, and I didn't want to mess around with that. So that brought that mom in with our guiding coalition, and we talked to her, and I said, you know what? From now on, we're never asking our parents to buy school supplies ever again. I don't care how we
Hmm.
can find the money. We had ministries that we worked with. We had our PTA that we worked with. We would have people donate all kinds of stuff. But when our kids came in that next year, man, everyone had school supplies ready to roll. And you mentioned about the TV cameras. Somehow that story got out, and a TV crew would come on the first day of school. That's the last thing we want to deal with in schools,
Yes.
the freaking
Yeah.
TV crew. But they
Yep.
were highlighting a positive story. But but that meant a lot for our kids, and I think that, yeah, first impressions last a lifetime. But schools do stuff that's just like it's just arbitrary, and I applaud leaders for thinking outside the box and do some different things. So anyway,
I
anyway.
know it can be challenging because schools don't always have a budget for that. So yes, working with community partners can really help. But I think it's a great effort that you all made. Sometimes you need to bump into somebody target to make a change.
Sometimes you need to be humbled, man. You got to be punched in
Yep.
the stomach a little bit. Well,
I'm
man,
surprised. I'm surprised you didn't say like, man, I something about that principal. Like I've been told I look like him. I've heard great things of Minnieville. He's actually a very handsome man. I think you'll be surprised and thrilled when you get there.
she would have
Um,
found that. I know, man. I could have, in hindsight, I could have wrote that story for a lot of what it's worth. But that also like helps me mention like secret like Undercover Boss. You ever watch that show Undercover
a long
Boss?
time ago,
Oh,
yes.
it's a great show. I
Yeah.
think we should do that, man. I think principals should like call their schools and check in to see how the customer service is going. I think we should have like secret shoppers go in and check like how the front office is interacting with everybody. I'm all about helping our schools be the most customer centric organizations possible,
I
especially
would
like on the
love
first day of school.
I'd love to see you like shave everything, put on a hat on like I have, and then masquerade as like an eighth grade student.
No, I think you would get
That's
arrested for that. You know what I mean?
you could. Depends how far you took it.
Definitely get arrested for that. Hey, man, we've had some really great episodes on the Community
We have.
Connection. I mean, I
So
know
I
this,
think
yeah. What do you got, man?
we had a great season one, a lot of episodes, and
Yeah,
I think when this whole thing started, it was a question of who would we be able to get to come on. We're
yeah,
just talking to like friends of ours and people we knew because certainly like we wouldn't be able to get any prominent education people on something like this, right?
yeah.
And here we are. 50 something episodes later, maybe 6, maybe 70 episodes later.
I think we're
It's
like around. Yeah, we'll
it's
split it
been
65 ish.
it's been a lot. But it was a great first season. I've been really impressed by who been able to talk to. Who resonated with you? So what are the ones that from season one that just kind of
Oh,
resonated?
geez, man, they're all great. You're all like your kids.
Oh yeah,
they're all special.
in
But
different ways.
I got to tell you, man, like, and one of the the most one that resonated with me the most was Chris Singleton.
Yeah,
Just because his story as a survivor of, his family surviving, and thriving with that horrible situation, and he was able to kind of, make magic out of that mess that happened with him. That was a really good one. That was a recent one.
yeah,
I really liked that episode. I loved Arnie Duncan, just because Arnie was someone that he was one of the first secretaries of education that I like understood because
yeah,
as I was getting into my administration during the Obama administration, Arnie Duncan was someone that, I mean, he wasn't an educator per se, but he was in education. And he was just someone I thought that was just like unapproachable. And he was exceedingly down to earth when he was meeting with us. So that was a really good one. And I think one more that stands out, gosh, the math guy, Peter
Peter
Liljedahl.
Liljedahl.
Yeah, Liljedahl. Like that was a surprisingly really good episode. I want to say, Eric, that might be one of our top episodes.
It is our top episode. Just hit over 1,000 views on YouTube.
Wow, 1,000
1,000
views.
views, man. It's crazy.
And I like that episode because I learned something. Like that's the whole point of the community connection is that we're interviewing people for very selfishly for us. And
Yeah.
so anytime I learn something that I can put for my practice or help teachers that I coach and administrators that I mentor, that's going to be fantastic. So those are three that stand out off the top of my head. What about you?
Man, so many. It's hard. I've been a big Natalie Wexler fan prior to us doing this, and being able to talk to her was phenomenal. I love David Zweig, just the
Oh, he was
background
great.
as a musician. I loved Invisibles, loved the one on the pandemic. It's great. Pondicio was very interesting. I like just he kind of has that same approach that I do of questioning things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Duncan and King, Smoker again, like Wexler, love talking to him. And I think for me, doing the Reeves and Sousa were impactful to me because I had to do a lot of research. I remember I talked to you about this. I did some pre-talks with David Sousa.
Mm.
Like this dude is a giant in the field of neuroscience. I need to do my own research before I even have a conversation so I don't come across looking like an idiot. So for both Reeves and Sousa, I was able to do a lot of research into them before having those conversations, and I think they were both very enriching.
Well, I wasn't on that episode, and I will say you did not appear to be an idiot. So you did a very
Thank
good
you.
job with
Thank
those.
you so much. Thank you. So which ones, like you mentioned, Lily Doll has 1,000 hits. Some of them do not have 1,000 hits, which is most of them. What
Mhm.
are some ones that you recall that if people were to look back through our catalog, they should check these out? What do you think?
I think the Ken Williams one is actually really, really good. It's really funny. It's very authentic. Ken's a very authentic educator and an author, and that was one of our earlier
It
ones.
was.
And it's
Yep.
kind of buried, kind of in. I'm thinking of like maybe reposting some of those earlier ones, or even asking some of these guests to come back. But I think Ken Williams, that's a fantastic episode that I think is a little understated. That's one that really stands out for me. What do you think?
So I have a few, and one is the Chris Singleton, like you mentioned, is one of your favorites. I think that was one of our, if not our most powerful episode.
Mm.
People should watch that. One of our earlier ones was like Tina Boogren, Ruby Payne.
Oh
I
yeah.
thought those were both really great, and uh,
Ruby Payne, I forgot about that one.
Ruby Payne, that's
That's a
also a classic, right?
that's a classic.
Um, Jim Knight, I liked just because he has a outsized influence in the world of coaching, and I thought that John King Jr., for somebody who was the Secretary of Education, he has a great story, great book out. I would love for more people to check out that episode too.
Yeah. I think I want to reach out to more. We had Joe Lally on. I don't think you were able to join me on that one, but he was the bass player for
Yep.
a seminal
Fugazi.
punk rock band, Fugazi. That's going to be a goal of ours. We're going to be really trying to get some more musicians and because I think there's a leadership connection with
Yes.
musicianship and artistry and creativity and the whole world behind that. I think that part of the vision of this show is connections, is trying to
Yep.
connect maybe disparate leadership voices out there, put them together so we can be more well-rounded. I think educators tend to live in an educational vacuum where
Bubble.
we don't look for businesses or we don't look for other types of organizations. We're just in the hemisphere of education and education leaders, and I think that can be a little confirmation bias in that kind of hemisphere. And I want this
Yeah.
show to kind of help break that down. What are your thoughts? What would you like to see?
So as I do like the contrarian voices. That's why I liked Pondicio and Zweig, a little bit of different outside of the bubble thinking. I'd love to see in season 2 some musicians. Love to see some more athletes, some politicians, specific names. Like I think of Doug Lemov. Love to try to get him on here. I also enjoyed our bonus co-hosts. I love
Yeah.
seeing Janine and Ray, Larry, Eric, Cheryl. If we had a few others, I always think our conversation's enriched when we get those extra voices in here. So I look forward to seeing some of those people come back and join us again for season 2.
Yeah, let's do it, man. It's we're busy guys, man. We do this. This is a non-for-profit, so we can only do so much. But I think the folks that have been able to connect with this with the show has got a lot of got a lot of it. I get emails and texts all the time. It's like, hey, love the show, love the show, love the show. Keep doing it. Why don't you have this person on, this person on, this person on? I'm like, we invited them, but they said no because we don't pay you. So that I mean that's something we got to think about too. I think that there's that information. There's so much information out there that if we could just be like one little star in the constellation to kind of connect people, I think that's
Yeah.
that's really the mission with that.
Any topics you want to hear more about in season 2?
I think that as professionals, we need to keep doubling down on research. And not just best practices, right, but better practices, and not just
Yeah.
like we want evidence-based practices. I think that's something that even something like the science of reading, just because it has the term science attached to it or branded, doesn't always mean there's a preponderance of evidence that's always going to say that this is right and this is right. There's different things that are right for different people. And I think that's something that we need to keep on doing is just making sure that we are not letting publishers dictate what's best and evidence-based practices, but actual researchers. So it's one of the goals that I want to have is keep connecting real effect sizes and real practices so that we can not just convenient practices together. Not only for teachers but for leaders as well. That's something that's always on my mind, that I never had that as a teacher and I didn't have that as a principal. And I think that that's something that in a world of convoluted news, and all kinds of stuff that's out there, opinion doesn't equate to fact.
Yep. I would agree. Like I'm always big on having researchers on, especially ones who kind of go against the grain or willing to do that. Um, AI isn't going away. So I know we had a few AI discussions last year. I'd love to have some more of those.
Yeah.
Love to hear more about some personalized learning. We had some people that were math. We had some people on language arts and that field and reading. Love to have some people on for science and social studies. Love to hear from some people in wow, school districts who are doing it well. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, morning.
Maybe some tech ed stuff, and yeah, certainly some researchers and people who can talk about the efficacy of research.
Yeah. So, all right, Eric. So, we're going to keep the show kind of tight a little bit. If there were principals that were watching this episode right now, from the great Dr. Worcester, what would be some just off the top of your head advice to give them as they're looking to help lead their schools through this school year? What would you say?
Yeah, be kind to your teachers.
Yeah.
Be to your teachers who you want them to be to your students. So I
Hmm.
would always keep that in mind. If teachers are happy, your students and families are much more likely to be happy. That doesn't mean you don't push them forward. It doesn't mean you don't have high expectations. It does mean that you treat them as individuals and you believe in them for the things that they bring to your school. Principal
Yeah.
Tencio, what do you think?
Oh my gosh. I mean, ditto on everything with that. I mean, be kind. I think being clear is kind. I know that's a Brene Brown kind of like
Sure.
cliche saying. I think, it's interesting. Like when you have educators in your building, I like this Wild West metaphor. So you either have pioneers, settlers, so like pioneers, trailblazers, settlers, and outlaws. Okay, I think
Mhm.
that's it. All right. So just bear with me here. So your pioneers are like your first year teachers. Like they have journeyed into education. Like they've got their wagon, they're hitched up, they're buying it, but they don't have a lot of skills. But they're on the journey. They're ready to roll. You've got them hired. You got to take care of those pioneers, right? You got to make sure that they have questions that are answered. You got to remove obstacles for them. You've got to make sure that they feel supported, that clarity is really, really big for those pioneers. And just because you hired them doesn't mean they know everything. I think in education, we have this horrible paradox where a first year teacher is expected to do the same thing as a 20-year vet.
Correct.
I think it's terrible.
Yep.
But those are your pioneers. They're
Yes.
they're there, they're willing. And then you've got your trailblazers, and your trailblazers are like your school leaders. They're the ones that they understand the vision and mission. They do this profession because it's bigger than themselves. They're the ones in your guiding coalition. Those trailblazers are like you give them something, they're going to do it. They're just that type of person. You know who those people are, right, Eric?
Mhm. Yeah.
They were us. We were trailblazers at the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they don't push you, but
Yep.
they just manage. It doesn't matter which kids that you put in their class. It doesn't matter what
Yes.
curriculum you put in their hands. They're just going to trailblaze and be awesome.
Yep.
But you still got to take care of them too. They
Yep.
need affirmation. They need to
Yes.
know that they are doing the right work, that you
Yep.
trust them, that you're confident in them, and that you keep praising them, praising them, praising them. I think that's important.
Yep.
Then you've got your settlers. And I think your settlers are those that have been with you or just been in school for a really, really long time. Maybe they're writing it out. Maybe they're very just comfortable with their practices. Maybe they can be skeptical, maybe a little cynical sometimes because they've seen it and they've
Yeah.
probably endured
Yep.
thousands of initiatives and thousands of changes, and they probably had hundreds of principals that just come in and out. So if you've got those settlers, it doesn't mean that they're bad educators. It just means
Right.
that they're just a lot has been done to them and not
Right.
with them. You know what I
And
mean?
I appreciate that, just that perspective, because it's easy to push people aside and say, "Oh, they just like doing things the same way. They've done it for 20 years," and that might be possible, right?
Yeah.
But it's just what has that person been through
Yeah.
in their career that has made them be this way,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
trying to affirm and help them grow or see a reason to grow is
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then listen, man, every organization is going to have some outlaws.
Sure.
And these are just people that have probably were pioneers at one point, and they
Yes.
were probably trailblazers at one point, and then they
Yeah.
were probably settlers at one point, and then now they're outlaws. Or maybe you hired outlaws. I don't know. Maybe you just had a vacancy and you didn't vet them as well as they needed to be.
Sure. Sure.
And there are people that will sabotage everything that you do. And there are people that are not good for kids. There are people that are just not good for the profession, but maybe they don't have any choices. I mean, in any organization,
Sure.
teaching,
Yep.
real
Yep.
estate, law, you're going to have outlaws.
Yes.
Um, I, Acknowledge who those people are and do your best to make sure they have the evidence. So like if you're and you also as a principal when you're working with outlaws and sometimes settlers, you gotta make sure that they trust you. Like you
Yep.
can't be disingenuous or they're gonna
Yep.
see right through you.
Correct.
You got to give them the evidence. You got to make sure that you're trying to partner with them. You got to make sure that there's like that was it logos, uh
Pathos.
pathos,
I think ethos,
ethos,
but
ethos, what yeah, those guys were really smart like 2000 years ago. Like they knew about this stuff. And you got to do your best with them. You can't just, like say, well, I'm just going to whatever because they may be able to turn around, but they
yep.
may have become sellers. But I will say this, if you allow an outlaw to sabotage your culture, they
Yeah.
speak for your culture.
Yep.
And I think principals, that's why you're a leader, is because you have to lead and you have to make hard decisions. And sometimes if there are people in your organization that are actively undermining a belief that all students can learn at high levels, if you don't do what you have to do to either help them in or help them out, you have failed to be a leader. You are a manager. You're managing people, not leading people. So it's a hard job, man. But it's the Wild West, brother. Wild West. Pioneers, trailblazers, settlers, and outlaws. So there you go. There's my yeehaw metaphor for you for today.
And on that note, we want to wish everybody a great start to the 25-26 school year.
All right.
We'll see
Circle the
you.
wagons. Circle the
And
wagons.
anybody, if you've got ideas for guests or ideas for topics, please email us. What's the best way to reach us, Nathaniel?
Yeah, so if you are a subscriber, it means that we've connected at some point, and so you get a personal newsletter and subscriber to this episode, and so you can always give us feedback on that. If you're a casual alert watcher, either like on Facebook or on Instagram or on YouTube, just you can always just kind of give us a comment on those platforms, and we value all those comments. And this is how we're going to start really making the connections even broader, so we can continue to connect with all these great educators out there. So, hey man, have a routine, boring, mundane first of the school year, man. I hope everything goes swimmingly. I'm
Surviving.
going to start. I'm going to start my road travels, and I'm going to be all over the place. And I'll see you next Sunday, man.
All right. Sounds good, man.
All right.